person intends to perform an action that causes harm to another. If D meaning defendant, if D intentionally frighten a person with a hard heart, a bad heart, who then has a heart attack as a result of the action, it would be unintentional tort even though the defendant did not have the mention of causing the heart attack. The type of assault: battery, forced imprisonment, intentional infliction of emotional distress, trespass to land, trespass to chattel, and conversion. And one is intentional tort. Second one is assault. Assault and battery. Assault. The intentional placing of another in reasonable apprehension of an imminent, harmful, or offensive touching without consent or privilege. If a defendant intends to make a apprehension, P meaning plaintiff. If a defendant intends to make plaintiff apprehensive by appearing to menace her with a loaded gun from 50 feet away, an assault has been committed even if the gun is in fact unloaded. 3. Battery. Battery is the same thing as assault. The intentional harmful or offensive touching of another without consent or privilege. A defendant threw a piece of wood at plaintiff, intending to injure her. The word misses the mark, but strikes a pile of rocks, setting loose on a balance of rocks that kills plaintiff. Defendants act directly or indirectly through a brought about the injury that led to plaintiff's death by setting loose the rocks. Assault meaning just a figure before the hit. Battery, rightly hit. The other party's hand hit my body. That's battery. Before the hit, that one is assault. United States and assault and battery. 4. Transfer intent doctrine. Transfer the intent to doctrine. Defendant's wrongful intent is transferred from the intended victim to actual victim or from the intended tort to the committed tort. The defendant sees Smith and acts on defendant's shirt. Defendant throws a stick at Smith or acts and accidentally hits plaintiff. Defendant is liable to plaintiff even though it was not plaintiff he was trying to hit. Number 5, substantial certainty doctrine. Substantial certainty doctrine. The assumption of intent, even if the actor did not intend to reject, but knew with the substantial containing certainty the act of fact. Again, but knew with the substantial certainty the effect would occur as a result of his action. Second line again, but knew the substantial certainty the effect would occur as a result of his action. If defendant does not act with the realization that it is substantially certain to result in a touching. Defendant meaning is deemed to the intended the result liable for the battery. Forced imprisonment. Forced imprisonment, the intentional physical or psychological confinement of another within fixed boundaries for any period of time without consent or privilege. A football player may be confined by a flag who grabs the player's coat, intending to detain him. Intentional infliction of emotional or mental distress. Number 7, intentional infliction of emotional or mental distress. Conduct of an extreme and outrageous nature, which is calculated to cause and which does cause reserved emotional distress. Threatening laughly by Bill Collinus, who attacked of a landlord seeking their rent, insult hurled in public, and deliberately killing plaintiff's pet, that are like typing cause of extreme and outrageous conduct. Next page. Number 8. Trespass to land. Trespass to land meaning for enter the other party's, another party's land. The intentional entry of the land, interest trespassing of another without consent or privilege. Without consent or privilege to other person's property. Privilege defendant on absentee owner. Is it his property? Which is farm? He drives a tractor on which he thinks in his parcel, but unbeknown to him, this is trespass. Despite defendant's reasonable ignorance of the fact that land is entering belonging to someone other than defendant. Number 9, trespass to chattel. Number 8, trespass to land. Number 9, trespass to chattel. Chattel is another property. The intentional interference with a chattel in possession of another without consent or privilege. One more time. Number 9, trespass to chattel. The intentional interference with the chattel in possession of another without consent or privilege. The defendant picks up piece meaning plaintiff. Defendant picks up plaintiff's book in the library, thinking it is her own. She underlines a few pages, then discovers the error and returns the books. Although defendant's mistake was completely incorrect, she nonetheless intended the physical act of picking up the books. Marketing it, and she's liable for trespass to chattel. Yeah, even that the books he's the mark, and he's the not the clean up the return. That one is also criminal matter. Number 10, conversion. Conversion, intentional exercise of wrongful dominion and control over the chattel of another without consent or privilege. Towing company is liable for conversion when it refuses the drawing on impounded second line again. A towing company is liable for conversion when it refuses to deliver an impounded car until outstanding charges are paid, even though it mistakenly believes it has a lien on the car for each paid charge. Yeah. So many towing car companies take the car, and then if the towing company take the car before that take the car, the owner should file for his notice A lot of person is only get up early in the morning. Somebody and then to car is somebody car stop his door and then he called the towing company and then towing company he says that please take the car. I can't enter or out my house. But the towing company says, no, I can't be towing. Why? You don't have any sign. If you getting to the somebody car, the tow, you should sure to under the towing sign. If not, towing car company cannot tow. You getting for some stop by to the store and then the buying for the material and then towing car company told that your car, but you cannot find that any sign. If you stop here, we will tow away. No sign. But towing a company told that's illegal. That's legally conversion. Trespass at initial. 11. Trespass from the beginning. Entry of the land is passenger of another. Under conferred legal right and the subsequent usage of that conferred legal right through the commission of an assault, battery, force imprisonment, or trespass, to arrest the criminal of such or such for stolen goods, and subsequently commit an act. That's an abuse of an authority. The authority of cancel retrospectively. Entry is deemed to have been a trespass from the beginning. Number 12, private nuisance. Private nuisance, unreasonable interference with the possessory interest of an individual in the use or enjoyment of his land. For example, violation, pollution of a stream or soil, smoke, for odors, excessive light and loud noises. Just next door or neighbors for the in case that's a private nuisance. 13. Public nuisance, unreasonable interference with the right commands to the general public. One must suffer an injury different in kind apart from that suffered by the general public in order to shirk on instruction on a public road in a public nuisance. But it is private nuisance as to plaintiff if it is also block her driveway. Plaintiff blocked the driveway, that is private nuisance. Next page, 14. Defense to intentional tort. Consent, self-defense, defense of another, defense of property, discipline, detention for investigation, legal authority, entry of land wrongfully withheld, necessary, recapture of chattel wrongfully withheld, and entry to abate a nuisance. Consent must be voluntary, manifested by word or action or silence in the case where a reasonable person would speak it. It was objectionable, not introduced by further. Express consent is when plaintiff actually communicated the to defendant willingness to submit to defendant's conduct. Implied consent is when plaintiff, by conduct, has read the defendant reasonable to believe that plaintiff is willing to pursue a permit to develop act. Plaintiff's failure to objection to the vaccination that plaintiff sees defendant preparing for plaintiff conveys apparent consent to the injection. The defense of self-defense. The defense of self-defense may be used not only where there is a real threat of harm, but also where defendants reasonably believe that there is one or has threatened to should be on slide. B sees A approaching him with his hand in his hip pocket. Does not see B and is putting his hand in his pocket to draw out a handkerchief. B mistakenly but reasonably believe that A is about to shoot him. B may use reasonable force to block what he thinks is an attempt to shoot him. That one is 16, the defense of self-defense. 17, the defense of another. A person right to use reasonable force to defend another person against attack. Defendant sees plaintiff who's slowly closing the street. Defendant believes that plaintiff is the defendant sees a defendant plaintiff who's slowly crossing the street. Defendant believes that plaintiff is about to be struck by an SUV, so he pushed plaintiff out of the way, causing her to fall and break her hip. If the defendant was reasonable in his belief that plaintiff would be hit, and those if she was not pushed out of the way and reasonable in the amount of force he used, he will be able to use defense of another as a defense to a better reaction by plaintiffs. Number 18, step in shoes jurisdiction, defense of another, defense of others. Step in shoes jurisdiction, meaning the defense of others. And one acting often a reasonable belief in the protection of another may use the same amount of force that the person being deferred would be entitled to use. Some jurisdictions, a person is not allowed to use the defense Number 18, again from the starting, step in shoes jurisdiction, defense of others. One action, often a reasonable belief in the protections of another, may use the same amount of second line, protection of another may use the same amount of force that the person being deferred would be entitled to use. In some jurisdictions, a person is not allowed to use the defense of another unless the person being defended was not an aggressor and had the right to use self-defense. Two friends meaning two friends, A and B, are a bar and gets into a verbal argument with the patron and escalate into a physical altercation, or begin punching the patron. The patron punches back and start to win the fight. B may not defend A in this case because A was the aggressor. Number 19. The appearance, jurisdiction, defense of others. In other jurisdictions, a person defending another in good faith and ignorance of the fact that the person being defended of the aggressor and not entitled to use self-defense is nevertheless jurisdiction when acting upon reasonable appearance. Sometimes it is further required that the person being deferred is one become being defendant to is one whom the defendant is authorizing. Next page. By stated to protect. Two friends, A and B, are in a bar and gets into verbal argument with the patron that escalates into physical altercation. Begins purging the patron. The patron punches back and starts to win the fight. B was in the bathroom when the altercation started and comes out of the bathroom to find being beaten by the patron. B will likely succeed on the reasonable appearance because in this case B was ignorant of the fact that A is aggressor. Number 20. The defense of property. Defense of property. A person may be privileged to use reasonable force to protect his or her possession of real or personal property against apparent trespasser. Defendant sees plaintiff crawling through an open window in defendant's house. Defendant mistakenly but reasonably believes that plaintiff is armed and might commit violence. Defendant rushes at plaintiffs without arguing. Number 20, the defense of property. A person may be privileged to use reasonable force to protect his or her possession of real or personal property against an apparent trespasser. Defendant sees plaintiff crawling through an open window in defendant's house. Defendant mistakenly but reasonably believes that plaintiff is armed and might commit violence. Defendant rushes plaintiff without warning, throws him out of the window, and slams of the window. In fact, plaintiff was unarmed and has never committed the slightest violence during his long careers as a cop. Or general proposition that any person, whether a police officer or a private person, privileged to use reasonable force to prevent the commission of a crime, which is apparently being attempted to his or her presence, where the arrest is made to prevent felony which threatening human life or safety. Courts have universally held that even deadly force may be used if there appears to be no other way to prevent the crime. At midnight, a police officer observed a man breaking and entering into the window of a store, and the officer apprehends the man by basing him. 22. You should remember your voice is bigger than me. 22. The defense of recovery of property. A person is privileged to commit an act which would otherwise constitute an intentional tort if he or she is acting for the purpose of regaining possession of land, possession of his or her property. There are three separate aspects to this particular defense. They are re-entry of the land, recapture of chattel, and shopkeeper's rule. Shopkeepers apprehends shoplifter by tracking him to the ground after the shoplifter ran out the door with over 5,000 worth of merchandise. No, 5,500 words. 23. Re-entry of the land aspect relate to one's privilege to use force to re-enter land only if the taking of the land was tortious or wrongful and the re-entering party of entitled to immediate possession. Ordinary demands must be made for the occupier to vacate unless such a demand would be totally entitled to exercised by forfeit, only force not likely to cause death or serious bodily harm may be used. 24. Recapture of chattel aspect. Recapture of chattel aspect. Defense related to recovery of property related to one's privilege to use reasonable force to defend against chattel being taken from his or her possession. If such force is not likely to cause death or serious bodily harm, a purse snacker grabs a woman's purse and runs after him, tackling him, sprays pepper spray in his face, and then ties his hands up with the shoelace as she waits for the police to arrive. So funny. 25. Shopkeepers' rule aspect. Shopkeepers detain suspected thieves. Example, a shoplifter or embezzling employees. For the purpose of investigation, the shopkeepers claim to the goods, even though it may be determined that no wrongfully taking has been committed. 26. What's that right here? Fresh person. A person recapturing a chattel or a shopkeeper detaining a suspecting thief must do so without unreasonable delay after promptly discovering with the ruse. Restaurant owner sees a man leaving the restaurant without paying for his meal. The owner chases the man down the street until the overtaken detain him. This one is the think about it illegal. A restaurant owner sees a man leaving the restaurant without paying for his meal. The owner chases the man down the street until the overtakes detains him. Before comes the police, but be careful in this case. 27. The defense of legal authority is a defense that is usually used by police officers or private persons who have made an arrest, either with or without warrant, and who are now facing cases of forced imprisonment in relation to their having made the arrest. With a warrant, a police officer arrests a man suspect to burglary. The man was innocent and sues the officer. 28. Defense of necessity. A person may be privileged to commit an act which would otherwise be torturous if that person is acting is an emergency situation to protect himself or others from a threatened injury to person or property. The person claiming necessary may act on appearance. A reasonable mistake is permitting defendant, private citizen, breaks into plaintiff's house to put out a fire inside that the defendant reasonably think may spread to numerous nearby buildings. Defendant will have the privilege of public necessary. 29. Reasonable concept permitted all of the defense to intentional tort. It is a standard by which the amount of force used and or the time and manner of a re-entry, recapture, or detention is judged. For example, the reasonable person standard in the standard of a case of care that a reasonably prudent person would observe often a given set of circumstances. 29. Require, number one, a duty of due care owing by the defendant to the plaintiff. 2. A breach of that duty by a failure of exercise due care. 3. A causal connection between the breach and harm to the plaintiffs is terms of actual and proximate negligence action. That is, damage must be proven. A shopper at a local store slips and falls on a spill that had been left on the floor for over an hour and had no warning or barrier placed upon the spirit. The man sues the store for damage because he broke his hips. Here the store was duty to shopper to keep the store safe. The store breached that duty was letting the spill stay on the floor over an hour without any warning. And the spill was the actual and proximate cause of the damage suffered by the shopper. Their liability will be found. Number 30. Element negligence. The elements are duty of care, breach of duty, actual and proximate causation, and damage. 31. General duty. Everyone owes a duty to exercise due care as of not to subject others to unreasonable risk of harm. Drivers owe a duty to drive with the care as not to injure others. 32. Caduce rules on duty. The majority opinion expressed by Justice Caduce in the landmark case of Palsgrave versus Long Island Railroad Company held that the defendant owes a duty of due care only to those persons to whom the defendant can reasonably foresee some injury to by reason of said defendant negligent act. Therefore, according to the rules, there is no duty owing to the plaintiffs who was in a position of apparent safety when the tortious act occurred. This is the recall of bit of danger, John of danger test. A car runs off a road, hits a pole, the pole hits a trailer with a boulder in it. The boat launches over 500 feet into the air. His tractor parks on the hill. The tractor rolls down a hill, strikes a parked car. The parked car rolls down the hill, gaining speed until the crashes into a bike that launches into the air and hits a pedestrian who was over a mile away from the original car that hits the pole. On the collision, the driver of the car would not be liable because the pedestrian was unfortunate and within a position of apparent safety. The pedestrian was not in the zone of danger. 33. The Andrew rule of duty. Andrew rule on duty. Dissenting opinion that the expressed by Justice Andrew in the Paragraph versus Lordland Railroad Company case rejected the concept that no duty is owing to the unfortunate plaintiff and adopted a rule of unlimited duty. Therefore, according to the Andrew view, if a defendant can reasonably force that his or her conduct is such that it endangers anyone, then that defendant owes a duty of care to the whole world. The Andrews view has that substantial support and has been applied as the majority opinion in other news cases. Both Cardozo view and Andrews view are used today in different jurisdictions. Under Andrews, the defendant owes a duty to the pedestrian because only could have been hurt by the driver's negligence. 34. Owner liability status. 13 statute impose liability upon owners of a vehicle for the tortious act committed by a person whom the owner intentionally furnished the vehicle to. Defendant loans his car to defendant who was involved in a car accident due to defendant's negligence. Defendant is liable in jurisdiction that have owner liable status. 35. Duty owned a guest passenger. A driver was a motor vehicle. in the absence of a statute otherwise, owes the persons riding the vehicle a duty of driving with due care. However, number of jurisdictions has a statute that prohibit that a guest passenger in an automobile cannot recover from the owner or operator of the automobile unless the owner's operator is guilty of willful misconduct, recklessness, or intoxication. Defendant was willfully reckless in driving and injured a passenger in his car after crashing into a tree under the gassed passenger statute. The passenger may use for damaging. Whereas if the driver was not willfully reckless, the guest may not sue for damage in jurisdiction that do not have a statute. Otherwise, the injured passenger may sue for damage. 36. Due to owed to those injured by drunk driver. 36. Due owed to those injured by drunk driver. A person who serves alcoholic beverage to one who intoxicated is not, in the absence of a statute stating otherwise, liable for the damage done by the drunkard. However, under statute traditionally referred to as a dram shot act, on owner, a bartender, or other persons serving alcoholic beverage to persons who are intoxicated can be held liable for the forcible damage caused by the drunk. 37. Family purpose doctrine. A parent who furnished a vehicle to the member of his or her family or customary convenience take the form outside. Family purpose doctrine. A parent who furnished a vehicle to the member of his or her family for customary convenience assumes liability for the proposed act committed by those persons when the car is being driven for a family purpose. Parents like ask son of the right of the store to buy a loaf of bread. Son gets into the accident because he was testing while driving. Under the family purpose doctrine, parent is liable. 38. Duly also rescuer. A plaintiff rescuer may proceed against the defendant on a negligence theory when the plaintiff is injured by person of the fact that the plaintiff engaged in an act of rescue and the negligence act of the defendant creating the situation that necessitates the rescue immediate jumps of cliff. Rescuer is injured while descending cliff to rescue idiot. The idiot is liable for rescuer's injury. Last one, number 39. Duly owed by a good Samaritan. Duly owed by a good Samaritan. A person who embarks into the performance of a service for another, whether gracious or for consideration, is under duty render those service with the care. This person, however, is liable no duty to complete the performance of a service unless abandonment of such performance would prejudice the other party's position. The rendering of aid in an emergency is a form of rendering service and imposes 13 duties of the person who undertakes to render such aid. The rendering of other gracious service for other individuals will likewise create 13 duties of the person who undertake the performance of those services. Some jurisdictions have enacted statute designed to encourage the rendering of emergency aid by physicians by limiting to liability that could otherwise be imposed upon them. Generally speaking, liability can only be imposed upon them for reckless or someone misconduct. Good Samaritan. Use the Hamlich maneuver to help man who was choking in his food at a local diner. In giving the maneuver, the Good Samaritan used due care. Nevertheless, injured the choking man. In his case, although Good Samaritan injured the choking man because he used due care, he's not liable for choking man's injury. Good Samaritan is a good person or bad person?
Good.
Good person. Yeah. Okay. Good job today. Finish.
감사합니다, 선생님.
Wow. You just finished.
감사합니다.
Wow, it's only a